Hey YouTube, just a quick update on the 71 Thunderbird build. I received the master cylinder from eBay. On the firewall, the kit has this area for it kind of built out. I think I'm going to assemble this and then cut this off and then just attach this part. This will replace that. Assemble the seats and take off these bumpers, as I previously noted. I cleaned up the master cylinder parts, then clamped them in the correct position and hit them with Tamiya cement. After having cleaned up the front seat parts, I again clamped and cemented them in the correct position. Next, I removed the roof supports with my razor saw, then sanded down the entire car body. In addition to abundant flash, the edges of the body lines were too sharp, so to speak, and needed to be smoothed out a bit. There are also mold press lines below the side rear windows, as well as ejection pin marks below the windshield, all of which I filled and or sanded out. Okay, so I'm going to cut this front bumper off, and what I'm going to try to do is cut it along the angle of that bumper, if you can see that there. Cut it at that angle. So I'm going to lay this on here. I cut the front and rear bumper off with my razor saw. It's time to cut off the bumper parts just so I can get a complete dry fit of the whole car. I removed the bumpers from the sprue, then cleaned up the connection points and the minor flash, then test fit them on the front and rear ends of the car respectively. I cleaned up and test fit the firewall in the car body, then clamped it in precise position and attached it with Tamiya thin cement. Next, I removed the larger circular portion of the master cylinder with my razor saw and test fit it to the firewall. A brief stash ad anecdote here. Gosh, probably 20 years ago, I was at a Stearman fly-in near Galesburg, Illinois, and they had like a flea market attached. And I bought these two photos, two flying icons, Charles Lindbergh and Amelia Earhart. And I subsequently bought this kit and built the kit, but never got around to finding the Amelia Earhart kit. I'll pop a few reference videos in here. We saw this plane on our trip to Washington, D.C. back in, I think, of like 2014. And then just recently, as modelers do, I got some sort of notice, email or text or something, about a sale, and I saw this kit. Found it on Hobby Link, I think was the cheapest delivered. So that'll go in the stash. It's a special hobby 1-72 of the Vega 5 Lady Lindy. I opened up the kit. It's a nice kit. I'm not going to do a full unboxing now, but it's going in a stash, and I'll build it somewhere down the line to go next to the Spirit of St. Louis. And then the last thing is, went out on Fine Scale Modeler's website and got a book about building armor. So I'm learning up to build that M109. Cleaned up virtually all the parts. So now the next step is, before I go to painting, I want to make sure that I have enough room under the hood here. I've been reading and watching what other modelers have done. The only video I could find out on YouTube for the building of this kit is by a channel called Richard's Toy Room. And one of the things he mentioned is that on this piece, I believe he said he had to cut the fan housing off and cement that directly to the support wall, because it was just so jam-packed in there. So I want to do a test fit before going forward, and if I have to thin down any of the layers, so to speak, because I'd like to have everything in there. So working from the front back, we start with the radiator and fan housing, which goes up against this wall here. Then on either side, I have the battery piece, which goes there. And then I showed you in the reference there, it looks like windshield washer fluid, or what have you, some sort of fluid container here. So what I did was, on this faux engine bottom piece, I cut off the oil pan, which has, I'll pop a close-up picture in here, but what is the oil pan nut turned upside down could look like a cap. And then what I did is kind of did the opposite of the battery and carved that out so that I could put it in there kind of similar to the battery, something like that, with a little, hose or something coming off of it. I think it'll look good. So that's what I have going across the front. All right. Then, with the engine assembled, yeah, so if you can see that, that fan is touching that wall. If you look down here, see that gap? That gap there is probably as wide as the radiator. So, what do I have to sand to get that back to there? So, it's this piece here. I file and sand the bottom of the transmission forward and the oil pan forward to make up the difference. Okay, there we go. That gap is gone. So now I've got it further back on here, where it touches here, and where it touches underneath on the oil pan. And now I have a nice gap there. So now this should fit. Yeah. And it's a tight squeeze, but I have the tweezers between there. Yeah, that fits now. So that's good. So thank you, Richard's Toy Room, for the heads up on this. With that done, I believe the next step is painting. Kind of thinking through how to do that. I think I'll paint the engine first and kind of work my way out from there, if you know what I mean. Also, there's a few videos out there on how to detail dashboards. So I'm learning. I also want to maybe try to fashion a gear shift to put onto here. So on the painting front, previously showed you this list. This is for the engine: light blue, aluminum, steel, silver, flat black, gloss black, white. I also went through, marked them on each piece, and then went through the rest of the instructions: dark blue, chrome, black, brown, and gloss black, silver, flat black, red, steel. So I have all those: gloss black, flat black, aluminum non-buffing. I also have the non-buffing steel, silver, gloss white. This is called bright light blue, and I think that really looks like the references for that nice clean engine. Really, that I'll pop it in here. That looks like that to me. And then it comes down to what to do on the outside of the car. I showed you where I tracked down the Ford color, the pastel blue. That translates down into testers into light blue. I went out on Amazon and found the gloss light blue and then the gloss dark blue. So for the exterior of the car, I'm going to try this. And if I need to add a few drops of the gloss white to lighten it up, so be it. And then for the interior and the vinyl top, I'm going to go with this dark blue. And again, if I have to darken it up with some drops of gloss black, so be it. I then researched, because I have the Alclad, but I wanted a really mirror finish on those two pieces. On these two bumper pieces, I wanted, a mirror finish. I don't want to have to redo this or take this off and redo that. It's too much work. So I kind of researched and found these. I have Alclad. I just can't get it as chromy as I'd like. This is called a mirror chrome, and according to its website, it works like Alclad, and this is the black base Ultimate Black Primer for Mirror Chrome Airbrush Paint, which is this. So I'm going to give that a try on these two pieces to get them as close to that as possible. And if they're not, it's okay because they're underneath. So that's what I'm going to do for the painting. The other thing, there's a YouTube channel called Barbados Rex, and any possible question you could have about paints, airbrushes, airbrush paint accessories, this, that, and the other. This YouTube channel has it. I highly recommend it. One thing I learned from his channel about dealing with these tester paints. He loves them. I've used them for quite a long time, but this I did not know. I wasn't thinning them enough. So he recommends, and I went out and I bought the box. Buy a box of these, and basically it's 1-to-1, and this will hold 2 of these. So you get the paint in there, pour the paint in there, and then fill this again with a simple lacquer thinner and fill it up the rest of the way, and then you put it in this shaker. And I went out, and this is pretty inexpensive on Amazon, and then you put it in the shaker and shake it up, right? And then store it that way. Label it and store it that way. So that's what I'm going to do with all these. Yeah, so here's thinned. So anyway, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to start kind of storing them, labeling and storing them that way. And the very latest update, I just received these license plates from eBay. I got the Ford license plates and then a series of Illinois license plates. I don't think they had 71. I think the earliest they had was like 78, but I'll throw that on there. So that's the latest update. That's where I'm at, and then in the next video you'll see things painted. And I'm also watching a bunch of videos on various aspects of detailing the engine, so that'll be in the next video as well. So I think that's a good stopping point. So in the next video I'll actually be applying the various paints, weaving my way through what order to do what in. Again, this first car I've done since I was 10. So again, thanks for watching and happy modeling.